just wait for Sandy to sort that out if she can. How are you doing?
Yeah, it's recording.
Okay, marvelous. Oh, it didn't come up to me to, normally it comes up. But that's fine. At least we are all on. Okay, so these are the Sustainable Development Goals, which we're trying to get everybody to be aware of, get posters up in nurseries, training rooms, wherever you can, to remind people that our country has signed up to these and that we need to be working on them all. They are very much linked. And in fact, if you look at the number 17, it's about partnerships for the goals, which kind of also ties all the goals in together. But we found it's actually helpful to go through one at a time and share what we know. So I'm not doing all the talking. I've got 3 little discussions planned in this next maximum of an hour. Because I'm no more expert than anyone else. I've just looked it up on the internet and reflected on what I know, so that we can then also share what everybody knows. So this one's affordable and clean energy. So just to show you what it actually includes, I'll just go on to that screen, because I think it's then, is that bigger for you all now? Yeah, got some nods. I can't see you all, so that's the trouble with presenting on PowerPoint and Zoom. So that's just a little picture that I picked up to show affordable and clean energy in its mustard colours. And these are the goals within the overall goal. And as you can see, the date is coming up really quickly on this one. And I'm not sure what they're going to do post 2030, which is why it always worries me when I see people like the DFE say that their goal is to be carbon neutral by 2050. You know, what happened with 2030? And obviously we're very proud that we are already carbon neutral, although 3 tons of that every month is generally offset. So we've still got 3 tons that we could do with reducing rather than offsetting. So 7.1, I'm sure you can read that, so I'm not going to read it aloud to you. So this is accessible for us. Whether it's affordable by us, I think it's pretty much debatable, isn't it? Because it is really expensive to access energy these days. And there are some people in our nurseries, staff and children and their parents, who are in too much poverty to actually pay for their energy. And I think that is something to bear in mind. Yes, it's in this country we're a lot better off than many. But I did hear the other day that there were more people in debt to utilities than has ever been seen before, which is not surprising given the hike in prices. So it's not just about us in the nurseries and in Aspire training team. It's also thinking about how can we help those that use our services. So whether those are children or students or parents or staff, to have affordable energy. Reliable, I think it is pretty much in this country. We have had the odd power cut. So I would love to put batteries in some of our nurseries and in my home. I haven't, because the return on investment is still pretty high, but it's coming down all the time. And as soon as our car batteries on our EVs starts to not be sufficient for the vehicles, apparently that's a way of using them for another few years, is to use them on your house. So we'll look at that as the fleet starts to run down. 7.2, more renewables. I've got some data on that for you in a minute for the UK. And in the company, well, we've just had the ECEC report, which will, I think, give us the share of renewable energy, won't it, Sandy? Because most of us, our main supply is renewable. Obviously, the only ones that aren't are when we have to get our energy through another supplier, whether that's the MOD or the NHS, and they haven't gone on to renewable. And those people, or a church, and those people we are putting pressure on, hopefully every year, to ask them to swap their supplier to renewable energy. But obviously it's not our decision. All we can do is advocate and put a bit of pressure on. And then there's another one that's a bit strange, the global rate of improvement in energy efficiency, which obviously we can only do at what we can do, and then pressurize people like the DFE and MPs and our landlords to have more energy efficient products. So by that, I interpret it as being fridges and freezers and, you know, kettles and tumble dryers and all that kind of stuff can be a lot more efficient. And in fact, I went to a show yesterday just for a few hours on laundry equipment. And I learned some things there that could help us be more energy efficient, which I will share with, we're going to have a subgroup of people to discuss laundry, which particularly as appropriate for washable nappies. So you can expect a meeting invite, those of you who might be interested in washable nappies, and I can share what I learned yesterday. It's literally a sector where things are improving all the time. The challenge is to try and stay up to date with what can be done in our buildings, either new builds or retrofit builds, and with our equipment, because technology just moves apace all the time, and people are really beginning to focus on energy saving, energy use, renewable energy in a way we've never seen before right now. So I'm sure we can expect more stuff to come through, and it's more than my life's work to keep in touch with everything, all those changes. So I think it's you know, one of the things we're using Gecko website for is to put up what we've learned. And I'd encourage you that if you learn something that's useful, you know, for you to save energy or to be more efficient at home or in a nursery at work, then share it, because we can all learn. And then I'm afraid it's relearn and relearn as things change again. You know, we were using the eggs for our laundry, you know, and now we're not so much because it doesn't take the stains away. You know, these things we learn all the time. So we just need to keep sharing and changing and be open-minded. And I think those are really important for sustainable development. That open-minded, be prepared to change your mind, to learn, to share with other people, and go around the circuit again. It's the master of change. And as we know, some people don't like change very much, but we really have to change and adapt if we want to be sustainable. So it's just as well some of us are, you know, really resilient as well, because that change does take a toll. You know, when you think, okay, I'm going to make this change, and then you have to do it again, and then you have to do another change. It's yeah, quite challenging. Okay, so that's, again, I'm not going to read 7A and 7B because it just goes into more detail, really. Just one little point I'd like to make, and that is that I've been trying to buddy us up with some nursery settings. I haven't done training settings yet in other countries, so that we can share how they are so low on their energy use, but actually help them to potentially use a bit more to balance it. We're using too much, they're not using enough. For example, they might not have lighting by which to study. They might not have heating when it's cold. They might not have enough water, which is another subject. But those kinds of things, we need a bit more balance. We need to help those people that are really suffering and poor, because we are in a relatively rich country and we use too much energy. So more of that perhaps later. I said I'd come back to some of the stats, and here we go. 1/3 of the world's population using dangerous and inefficient cooking systems. So, for example, if we were to pal up with a nursery in, you know, Uganda or somewhere, or Kenya, where they were using inefficient cooking systems, maybe we could fundraise to help them, or help them in some way. But we obviously can't help them all. So this is why I'm thinking just kind of buddy one sector in the UK with one setting in the global south, so that we can help each other, but they can also help us, because they're more efficient, much more efficient on things like water. And there are some other stats there as well. Lots of people lacking access to energy. 3 out of 4 of them in the sub-Saharan Africa. And in fact, I found out the other day that 40% of all children born are going to be born in Africa. So that has to be an area, you know, where we need to be aware of what's going on. Partly because these children could also want to emigrate into the UK as well. And we're world citizens, you know, it's not just a question of, okay, we're all right, thanks, Jack, in the UK. We do need to be sensitive as to what's happening in the rest of the world, because that's where wars are likely to happen as well, you know, as people feel the injustice. So that's why it is relevant. There's a bit on energy efficiency as well, that it is improving, but it needs to improve more. And some other data about where energy is used. you know, in the heat sector, the transport sector, and so on. That was 21, so it's obviously not bang up to date, but that was as good as I could get. And again, some facts that I looked up and I've just copied and pasted in there for you to read. Traditional fuels for cooking cause lots of nasties in the air, but as do fires. You know, that, for example, the Canadian fires have caused lots of children in nurseries to have to wear masks just because of all the stuff in the air. And in some countries, they're burning their fields and they're burning their wood, which, you know, from trees, which we don't want to do. So that this is where a lot of the issues are coming from. And sadly, women and children are the ones suffering most. Oh, let's turn that sound off. And yeah, lack of access obviously inhibits business and it inhibits education. So where are we with the UK energy? Well, again, I'll let you have a read, but we are doing a lot better than we were. And in some times of the year, it actually goes a lot higher than 40% is renewable energy. And as I said, ours is close to 100. And the target for the UK isn't until 2035. So we are going to miss that compared to the SDG. And there's a target for wind energy and also solar energy. And we're not using any wind energy at the moment, but it's something that I'm keeping an eye out on, because it may be that some of our nurseries could have, you know, windmill generating power in their gardens or on their roofs or something like that. But it's not something I've done a lot of work on recently, something for the future. So how about us? How much energy do we use? Well, brand new off the reporting and not yet uploaded, Sandy has done an amazing job, and she's done our ESOS report, which I haven't read all the way through. I've managed to open up a page full of appendices, and I've been starting with those. So I'm really looking forward to reading that in more detail. But Sandy, can you give us any highlights? You know, I thought we said we cut 23% of our electricity just in one nursery after putting insulated ceiling panels in. Anything else you'd like to?
That was quite a surprise, actually. That was at Babacombe, I believe.
Yeah.
That was quite a surprise to see that. Obviously, you've got to take into account potentially where I'm comparing. There could be slightly differences in temperature, weather, that sort of thing. So you do have to take that into account, but it was a significant saving. Cheryl did mention wind energy. I have actually looked into that a little bit through this ESOS report. So I have, you know, the recommendations in the ESOS report aren't legally binding. They are just things that we found that we potentially could do. There is scope to do that. So I had a look at looking at some wind turbine energy, especially for those nurseries that have high electricity usage, because that's where we will benefit the most. So I did actually have a conversation with Joe about putting some ceiling tile insulation in one nursery, and there wasn't any point because their heating was actually quite low. Their usage of energy was quite low. So it's not always the case that insulation is going to save us money. I think if I worked out the payback, we would pay it back over 27 years, but there's no point in doing that. Absolutely no point at all. We could use that money elsewhere. But the biggest shock probably was potential wastage. In this ESOS survey, I had to look at I had to do profiling on all our sites that we could get half-hourly data from. So we looked at the opening times and how much energy is used before the opening times and how much energy is used after they're closed. And it was quite shocking in some cases. Now, what I need to do now is over the next 5 years before the next ESOS survey is have a look at why that is happening. It could potentially be we've got fridges, freezers, lots of different things potentially that have to be left on, but there could be other stuff that could be switched off. So yeah, we can still save a lot. We definitely can still save a lot. Potentially looking at those sites that have catering hubs there, how Wimborne in particular is all electric. So how can we tap in to renewable energy to you rather than taking energy off the grid for those sites that are high energy usage. So yeah, it was I know I'm a bit sad, but I just love data. So
No,
it was
no, I'm
very
not sad.
exciting for me
I love it. I
to
love that you do.
work through that. Some people look at me and go, "You're mad," but I do actually really enjoy it. So looking at transport usage and mileage, and we know that's significantly dropped because of COVID. And the you know, we know we can do Zoom meetings rather than all drive somewhere. So that helps. But yeah, it's I just need to get it signed off by Cheryl and our assessor, who has to sign it off as well, and then I'll be able to get Ellen to publish some stuff on
Yeah, very
on
exciting.
Internet Gecko or wherever.
Very exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing the action list in particular. I mean, I'd love to, for example, install some batteries at Wimborne so that all the power we generate at the weekends, we can then use during the week.
That's in there.
Yeah, I bet it is. I bet it is. I'm really looking forward to that because, and then we'll have to work with Joe and work out, and Andrew, to see, you know, what we can do, what's affordable, what the return on investment is. And of course, the big thing is reducing our carbon footprint as well. I mean, it's so exciting. So yeah, I'm also sad that I find it exciting. You know, anything we can do for sustainability so our children aren't going to suffer as much has got to be great. So what we also do as a standard every month, those of you who may not be aware, is every month we look at the bills, and it needs to be not an estimate but an actual bill, and we look at the best nurseries and also the worst nurseries. And the idea is you learn from the best, and then you try and find out what's going wrong with the worst. Some of our worst are still better than, you know, probably nurseries in other places. And some of them are impacted by things we've inherited, like buildings that are listed. You know, you can't always put solar panels on a listed building, like the hub, you know, our hub office, we're not allowed to. But I think, you know, we just need to continue to advocate for this to our local authorities and to government, which I see as a lot of my job these days. Now I'm not operational, is to try and get them to you know, flex some of their rigid rules about what roofs we can put things on and what roofs we can't. But that is ongoing, and I'm going to continue my fight in that direction. So I did want to put it up to you as to, you know, what other ideas have you got to reduce our energy further? Obviously, Sandy's in a privileged position. She's got the whole report there anyway. But I wanted to know, you know, some of you might have ways you plan to reduce your energy at home. I think the point is that every little thing that we do is important, because this is going to be done by individuals, you know, with what they do, not by the government saying this is what you must do, because they're too slow. You know, this is going to impact us. This is impacting us now in terms of our bills. So, you know, let's share some ideas. If we open it up, I'm going to open it so I can see more of you on my screen if I can. But yeah, anyone got any things that they're already planning to do, but they might, you know, maybe it's a problem because they need the money to invest in it, or stuff they can do to save money so that they can improve, or suggestions for what their nursery can do. Any of those, love to hear you, and we can make a note. Who have I got on the call? I mean, Mikey, you've just moved house, so you've got all kinds of challenges there, haven't you? Because you don't really know what. So what's the first thing you're going to do in a brand new house to have a look at your energy use?
Yeah, we need to. I guess out here we don't have a smart meters. We need to get one of those installed. The house that we've moved in is a little bit old, so it's not a gas, but it's an oil heated house. Yeah, apparently it's more efficient, but I don't know. I've never been in a house that's heated by oil, so we need to monitor that to see what kind of bills will come out of that. Unfortunately, we're coming out of winter now, moving into the warmer months, but the hot water anyway still oil heated. Yeah, we've noticed.
Nightmare. We had that at Wimborne. And we
Oh,
did
yeah.
get rid of it in the end, but obviously when you're renting, it's not that simple.
Yeah.
But you need to watch the oil prices, and when it looks like they're at their lowest, stock up your oil container.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah. And you can
Great fossil
notice,
fuels.
we can also notice the insulation as well, because the house we just moved from was built in 2016, and this one was built in 1990. And you can feel that the insulation is the heat escapes much quicker than it did in the other house. Was much better insulated.
Ah,
So yeah, something to look out for as well. They've got lovely roofs, big roofs. There's an opportunity there to put in some solar panels, I guess, or something like that. Which
maybe the landlord will help with the insulation, and
yeah,
you can get
yeah,
grants as
yeah,
well for
yeah,
insulation,
yeah,
and
absolutely,
solar panels sometimes. So yeah, good luck.
yeah.
And I guess you're still having to buy electricity off the grid for the lights, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah, we do. We've been with Octopus for a long time, but
Yeah,
of
they're
course there
good.
are other providers out there. But uh, um, they just monitor them how at the moment it's not as beneficial as it used to be to switch to get to a better deal, because all of them are more or less charging the same prices.
Are they? Yeah, I went on a comparison site because I'm also in rented accommodation. For those of you who don't know, I managed to have my house burnt down, so I'm in rented accommodation for the next year or so. And I also had to find an electricity supplier, and there are various compare sites. And I also ended up going with Octopus because it seemed to be a good price and it's renewable energy.
Yeah,
So I'm not recommending anyone, but that's certainly my experience there.
yeah.
And how about light bulbs and stuff? Have you inherited any kind of, non, what are they called, LED light bulbs?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess I just need to work out how do you check that, because I know sometimes they say it's the color of the light you should look out for. The one
The
that looks
bulb.
is the bulb. You just check, would it say on the
Check the
bulb,
bulb.
the
Yeah, it
LED?
should say on the bulb, shouldn't it,
Okay.
Sandy? Say on the bulb? Yeah. And you've got to watch for lighting. We all thought a while ago, LEDs are definitely the business. Everyone get LEDs, and we have.
Hmm.
But then I heard that there was some colours of LED. If you're working all day inside under an LED white bulb, it impacts on your health.
Yeah.
You can have it's too much. It's too much for our bodies need natural light. So
Hmm.
the best thing you can do is try and work, near windows. So
Yeah.
you've got that natural light rather than having to work in a small little space with lots of LED light bulbs. It gives you headaches and all sorts.
Yeah.
And particularly if you've got too much, because sometimes you take out your old light, which is inefficient, and you replace it with the same number of LED bulbs, but you don't need to because they're brighter.
Yeah.
And that super bright white light causes headaches.
Yeah.
So there are some different colors of LED bulbs, and those are better. So if you are replacing light bulbs, which you should, because the old fluorescents are a disaster. I think they use 80% more energy than an LED. So you
Right.
absolutely need to get rid of fluorescents.
Fluorescence.
And
Yeah.
also those other ones that are even worse. I can't remember what they're called.
That definitely did contribute to the saving, because that's the major improvement we made from ESOS phase 2 to ESOS phase 3, was the lighting. And that did make, obviously it's across the board, it's massive, so it's different for a house, but I think what I learned is don't think small differences won't make a difference. They really will. I remember in the nurseries, it's really important, because I remember when I visited a nursery to do a site overview, I went into the office and I said, here's an idea, let's turn the light off and put the blind up. So because they had the blinds down and the light up, and it was a lovely bright day. It was a nursery I knew well, so they understood my sarcastic sense of humor. So apologies if anyone thought, oh, that's a bit off, but I could be like that with them, so it was okay. But it's all about, in the nursery, we haven't got motion sensors in everywhere, because it's just not practical. So it is about keeping an eye on that to make sure that lights are switched off staff rooms, toilets, etc. You know, I think they are mainly covered, but there are some places where we haven't got the PIR sensors. So it will make a difference. It might not seem like it, but over a period of a year, you'll be surprised how much difference turning off a light switch will make to the overall energy consumption of a building, even a big building. So don't think, you know, just doing that won't make much. It will, honestly, it really will. So, and also all the printers are on sleep mode. Again, that made a massive difference. So yeah, you'll be
It's amazing how
surprised
many appliances in our house that are on sleep mode, that you can see the lights flashing, and most people don't, like a red light on or whatever it is, most people don't realize that or don't think about that. That's actually for that light to be on, it's electricity being used. it's even though it's not working, it's still using something. But I was quite interested, Cheryl, in what you were saying about maybe partnering with nurseries from other countries, and then those that are using less energy, getting them to increase their use and us reducing ours. Could there be something in that where we could, say, run a project where we're saying that every time we reduce our electricity, we'll tell our partners in, say, I've got a friend in South Africa who I think you should meet, Cheryl, who's into the earlier. Say, for example, nursery in South Africa, then we can tell them that this month we've saved this much electricity, and we're giving it to you so you can use this much. I don't know if there's something in there.
There's definitely something in that. John Suraj Blatchford, you know, has been writing about that quite a lot. Is that balancing? He had some words, like long academic words he used. I can't remember what they were. Where we reduce and they increase, and certainly doing things like we've been talking about sending our old tablets in the nursery. You know, we've got a load of tablets that now won't work with iWorks because they've upgraded the system, but they're still working tablets. Well, there are people in nurseries in Africa and many other places in the global south that have no tablets, and would really benefit from being able to look stuff up, you know, on the internet, or identify their birds or whatever it is. So rather than us just putting them in the general recycling, to actually send 2 or 3 out to our partner nurseries in the global south, and they will need energy to use that. So we'll need to think about, well, how are they going to charge their tablets? But I know from Bruce and others, that's my son, from going on camping festivals, that you can buy solar panel chargers. So we would think about, well, how can we send, you know, a solar charger out with that tablet to enable them. Apart from now, some of them could then communicate with us, and then the children from one setting can talk to the children in our setting. You know, they could set up a meeting like this, and the children could learn from each other, because, you know, their children will be making balls out of waste plastic, you know, that our children could make. And those kinds of, you know, those kinds of things could be really exciting. They could show each other's houses and, you know, what they're playing with, and we could send stuff to them, and, you know, maybe have a teddy or something going backwards and forwards that's you know, that goes on its travels, or maybe we could even go and visit them. You know, it's all very exciting that we could do that. So yeah, please do introduce me to your friend. I'm building up a list of possible partners. And Jenny, I think, has got the first partner. She's partnered with. Jenny, did you want to tell us about your partner? Tanzania, is it, or Mozambique? Can't remember. You're on mute still. Still on mute. Oh, the pleasures.
There you go. There you go. Yes, it's Tanzania. I have been a bit remiss. I haven't been communicating very well this year. But I do get videos from her, and I just send quick responses saying how lovely the children are. They're all happy, bouncing around. I haven't managed to send anything for her. She was requesting uniforms. She needs to buy uniforms because they like to wear uniforms there.
Is that for staff or children?
For the children.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, so I've not managed to collect anything or get anything in place, but I do still get emails and updates from her. All right, so I apologize. I guess it would be just collecting funds so that they can get the uniforms. I don't know.
very, very
But it's
tricky considering our
specific.
children don't wear uniforms.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. What do you think about that one, Micah?
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, it's tricky. I need to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No.
It's worth her asking for things, but
Yeah.
that's probably not one that we can
Help
help
with.
with.
No.
No. Sending money is challenging.
It is.
I did hear of a friend who he did a lot of fundraising in Southampton and managed to raise enough to buy a minibus for a nursery in Kenya. But then it nearly got stopped at the last minute because people needed to be bribed and things like this in order to make it all work. So actually sending money is an issue. But he always took a suitcase when he went of clothes for the children that had been collected.
We did that. We went to Kenya on holiday once and we did that.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely wonderful. And I shared that with her, and that I'd had an aunt that worked as a missionary in Tanzania years and years ago. And so she's now communicating with me. She wants me to take staff out to see her, and she's going on about where we can stay and everything. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, slow down. Yeah. So
I think
really,
would be
it
wonderful.
would be lovely. It would be lovely.
If we can, it's getting the funds for that and then what they take with them.
Yeah.
But that's a dream worth having.
Yeah.
Obviously air travel is not great. We'll have to offset that as well, which I have to do because I do a fair amount of that.
Yeah.
But certainly something to bear in mind. How about, you're in a rented property, just to get back to energy. Is there anything that you can do or that you need the landlord to do to save energy? I know
here at Cotner?
Yeah.
No, because I think we use as little as we possibly can. I guess they could install solar panels, so they could do that. They were talking about putting in car charging points, but I don't know where that's gone because they've not materialized. So, but they were measuring up for that.
Right.
Yeah, so there's things like that.
You might be able to get some help from Sandy as to what to ask the landlord to do, and maybe arrange a meeting and say, look, these are the sorts of things you could do. Your one where the energy is paid for by the landlord.
Yes. Yeah.
We don't even know whether it's green energy or not.
No,
do we?
No, we don't. No.
I think we have a right to know.
Yeah.
And we can it's best done face to face.
Yeah.
But if not, then that we can. I know Micah writes standard letters, don't you, to our landlords?
Yeah.
And I don't know when the last one went to your landlord, and I know we've had a change of landlord as well.
So it's Pompey Football Club now.
Perhaps you could have as a little action to follow up on that.
Yeah. Okay.
Who else have we got from a nursery? We've got Sam Butler on the call, although I can't see her at the moment, or Atlanta and Kirsty.
Sorry, I am here. My camera's gone off and I can't get it back on.
Oh no, okay, Sam. Any ideas from you? Anything that you think you can reduce your energy further within your nursery?
So the one thing I was looking at is because we've got so many of the old sash grade 2 listed windows.
Oh yeah.
I was looking at idea of like the thermal blinds or the thermal curtains going on the ones that are along the long corridors.
Yep. I remember you mentioned that before.
Yeah, so we're looking at that idea because in the summer, the first floor really heats up from the sun coming in, but in the winter, you can feel the temperature difference as you get up the first flight of stairs. It really drops down quite cold.
Yeah.
That's where we've got our youngest and our non-mobile babies.
Yeah, so you need to keep it in the winter and let it out in the summer.
Absolutely. Other than that, I think we're doing quite well. We haven't been shamed for leaving the electric on too long recently, or the heating.
You've got a Nest, haven't you? You've got a Nest now, so you can actually control it.
Yeah, the only other thing we've got the problem with is our actual heating system. It seems to be that we need the heating on to get hot water.
Oh dear.
So we're trying to really manage that, and that has been passed on. It just seems to be a little sort of glitch every year where we sort of struggle to work out the easy balance of it and actually having the heating off, but having access to the hot water throughout the day.
Oh, Sandy, there's one for you in maintenance to work on. In fact, 2.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sandy.
No, that's all right, Sam, anytime.
I think this is good though. You know, you just
Yeah,
need to
it's
get
very
these
good.
what site by site. What is it you can do on
Yeah.
your site? And
There's
then we get
little
that
things.
done.
So there's another thing we became aware of this winter. The office area hasn't got any radiators or any
Oh.
heating in there. So we are having to share and use very minimally a plug-in radiator.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what we've found is when we've had a problem with the letterbox and the draft excluder, it got stuck. Now, because of the door and the style of it, and we're grade 2 listed, the actual draft excluder on the letterbox wasn't actually efficient for the size of it. So
Right.
the letterbox was constantly stuck open.
Oh, that's horrible in the winter.
Yeah, along with staff giving very good informative handovers, you freeze. So we have been looking at an idea of how we can get that updated and more efficient, because we must be losing heat through there as well
Of course you are.
throughout
Yeah.
the year. But it's just the little quirkiness of very old buildings that you find where the drafts are coming from and how to really overcome that, but without overheating the building.
Absolutely. I mean, in the old days, people always had curtains that they drew across their front doors.
Yeah.
That would, you know, sort out the drafts. At least it wouldn't go further than the heavy curtains.
Yeah.
And that indeed might be something that you could do kind of a couple of meters in, so that parents have got a space where they can do the handover, but it's not making the entire nursery drafty.
It's a very tight entrance.
It is, yeah. Yeah. So curtains as well might make it feel claustrophobic.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But we found since upgrading our fire doors as well, you know, that's helped improve on drafts and things.
Oh, has it? I didn't think of
yeah,
that.
so you don't feel the drafts coming through so much under the door or around the door.
Right, because there aren't any.
Yeah, so by actually having the proper fire doors put in, which I was quite pleased about, because I know they were very expensive.
Very expensive, yeah.
So it's a double win.
Yes, but now the nurseries are doing a bit better. Now is the time to ask Andrew for money to get some of these jobs done, just out of interest.
Yep.
You know, we've been so used to not spending for the last 3 years. Actually, putting a bit of spend in now that will actually save us money in future years has got to be a good idea.
Yeah.
You know, that we don't want profit I don't want profit just sitting around the bank being taxed. And I'm sure Andrew wants to have reserves. So there's always a balance there. And of course, we've got staff bonuses as well to think about. You know, when you spend money, does that take away from the staff? It's always, you know, something that's always been something I've had to bear in mind when I'm investing in a building. Would it be better invested in the staff? Which obviously a lot of people would say it is. It's just to get the balance right, so that we're as sustainable as possible and as supportive of staff as possible. So now we're actually moved into making a small profit again. This is a really exciting time. You know, we can do stuff. Who else have we got? Anyone else like to say anything on the call? Andrew, I can see you're on the call and probably horrified. But I'm encouraging them to spend money or not.
I obviously, if it's unbudgeted, then obviously we do need to fully understand it. But I do know that Joe and Sam have put stuff in the budget to try and improve some of the settings. We may just have to manage who gets done first.
Yes, indeed, because Sandy will know which is where the best savings are to be had.
Yeah.
So that's.
But we'll always have a little bit of money set aside for these sorts of projects.
Yep, marvelous. So yeah, go for it, people. Atlanta and Kirsty. Gosh, I can't remember which nursery you're from. Is that Fawley? Is that Fawley? No, that's a very modern building. So I don't know if you're still there, or if you can unmute or anything. Or if you've got any ideas, but they're silent at the moment. How about you, Zoe? Anything you'd like to do at Stonehouse in your office there or at home? Oh, she's coming off mute. Marvelous. Hi, Zoe.
Hello.
Hi.
Not too sure at Stonehouse. It does get pretty cold, but it is another old building, Stonehouse, as well. And I know the maintenance team have done a lot of work with the heating here already.
Yeah.
Yeah. not too sure about home really. I do quite a lot for sustainability already in terms of
Do.
making sure things are switched off and even unplugged at the wall. Drive my family and friends a bit mad, being a bit of a eco warrior. Go around switching things off and unplugging things. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've got quite a good deal, I think, with our energy supplier at the moment. But yeah, we've not looked at Octopus, so that might be something worth looking at in the future. I think we're on a fixed rate for a period at the moment.
Yes. It's no point changing when you're, signed a contract for a fixed rate. And if it's sustainable anyway, if it's renewable energy, that's not an issue. It's if then it is. Okay, thank you. Kelly, how about you for your training people and at home? Anything on the horizon?
No, it's really difficult because a lot of our trainers work from home, so they've got to really do their own energy saving and recycling and things like that. But we do discuss it in meetings, and we share our ideas of what we're doing at home with others. But there's nothing really sort of coming up as such.
Okay, it's more a question of embedding the sustainability into what they're doing every day. So teaching, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's also educating them and making sure that you continually talk about the topic of sustainability, because as soon as you stop it, they sort of like tend to forget about it again, and then you've got to sort of reinforce it and bring it back again. So it's just being consistent with that message.
Absolutely. Yeah, climate change is such a it's such a concept. When you have a war, you're sparked into action right away, or when you have COVID, we all had to do something straight away. But climate change just feels that bit more distant, that you don't necessarily feel it every day, even though, someone 100 miles away is having a flood, you still don't kind of necessarily associate it, do you? Unless you think about, well, what's the child going to be like, in 20 or 30 years time. I think that's why it's so challenging. And also, if you start thinking about the depressing bits, then you don't do anything, because once you get into depression and anxiety, you don't do nothing. You just shut down. So you need to be really positive and doing proactive, active things about it, and then you feel better about it. And at least you're doing your bit, and you do that, and then you do another little bit, and then another little bit, and before you know it, you made a huge impact. So that's the message there. How about Tracy? I know you're new and you've only just come on site. Any thoughts from you? Do you want to come on? Just want to make sure everybody has the opportunity. Oh, yeah, she's unmuting. Marvelous.
I am here. I do apologize.
I know.
Hi. We already have solar panels here at Beardwood, so we're obviously very fortunate to already have that. So yeah, I'm still obviously sort of finding my feet here a little bit to actually sort of think about actually sort of what else we can do actually at this site. But at my home, I'm constantly trying to actually sort of improve things. I live in quite an old cottage, and with that comes obviously sort of issues with old wooden windows that let a lot of draft in, unfortunately. So yeah, sort of just trying to actually sort of work with my landlord to actually see sort of whether we can actually improve sort of the glazing in there to actually sort of retain some of the heat, and making sure that I'm going to say my children are grown up, and so they should know better.
Yeah, mine too.
The lights off at night time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, very absolutely. Sort of I wake up in the middle of the night to find there are still lights left on downstairs, so I am constantly on them about that. So yeah, so as I say, I try my best. I could probably always do better, so that's something that I will I will continue to look at.
I think as well it's sharing tips, isn't it?
Sorry,
Sally, go on.
The good news about Beardwood is they do actually use nearly all their energy that they produce from the solar panels. It's definitely in the winter. They export very little because they've got the laundry hub there. So that is really, really good news. Obviously, that will increase slightly in the summer, but certainly through the winter, they were exporting very little to the grid. So that is good. That is good news from Beardwood's perspective.
Yeah, good to hear.
Yeah, I don't think Bearwood's got an issue with that, which is great. I think it's still about practice, though, isn't it? Getting people to I mean, what tips have we got for getting our teenage, whether they're staff or children, to turn lights off, so when they go to bed they actually bother to turn the lights off? I mean, that's, Charlie, you've got teenage boys. How have you managed with yours?
Nagging.
Nagging.
Nagging. Yeah. And just oh, have you finished in the kitchen? Do you want to turn the light off? Just things like that, really. Yeah, they're pretty good. But yeah, I think it's just like Kelly said, it's just role modeling, isn't it? And reteaching and re-going over it. And like Zoe said, just turning things off and unplugging things. People soon get the message, don't they? Zoe? It's just, yeah.
Persistent, repetitive, nagging.
Yeah. Yeah.
Signage help, because we used to have those little Marty Mouse turn the light off stickers next to the switches.
Yeah. As a prompt.
Yeah, do you think there's any scope for doing that in nurseries to prompt people to turn lights off or not? Maybe.
Might help, mightn't it? It's worth a try.
I was going to say, always worth a try.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you feel that would be helpful, I mean, maybe discuss at your staff meeting. If it's a problem, might not be a problem. If it's a problem and you think you need some signage, then come back to us and we can source some at the hub for you to use. Now we're in EOT, maybe it would really help them to realize that every penny saved goes, you know, a percentage of that will go to their bonus budget. You know, if they realize that they're burning their bonus by leaving the lights on at work, perhaps that might have an impact. You know, just, it's worth a thought. Have a think. And if you think that's something you want to progress, we can come back to operations.
We did talk about that in one of our training team meetings, about having a energy saving pledge.
Yeah.
For the children then have these actions that they have to agree to, and then there's stickers and things around the nursery, and then they can sign up to these pledges, and it could be like turning the tap off once they've washed their hands, turning lights off, all those sorts of things as an activity. It's probably more for the older children.
Yeah. Out of school and the preschool maybe.
Yeah, you can still do it with the 2-year-olds. It's just at a lower level.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, actually. I'm not sure we've got anyone from operations proper on the phone, so on the call. So maybe Sandy could go back with that to the nursery managers that are within TOPS. But I guess Kelly, your team can get it to nurseries that are outside TOPS.
Yeah, we do it through activity planning for their assessments and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's you can also use this at the home as well, so they can take it home and do the same pledges in their home environments.
That would work really well. That would also tie in with the OMEP Education for Sustainable Citizenship, if they were to do something like that. But I'm not sure it's one of the activities on it. So I will check with John, because we could ask him to make sure it's on for the silver or the gold, even because I'm pretty sure it's not on bronze. So that's brilliant. Thank you very much. And it might be that you need some, what do they call it? Collateral, as in leaflets and brochures and, you know, email things that you can send to parents or whatever to encourage them to support their children, or things the children can take home with them to their parents. So I'll make a note of that as well. Lovely. Thank you very much. See how many ideas we come up just like that.
For staff, sometimes it helps to have visuals of like how it's impacting your carbon footprint or how much money you save. I know the Vegan Society do it a lot on their recipes. If you look at their recipes, it shows you what your what impact it's having on your carbon footprint, swapping that recipe for an alternative.
Yes.
So similar things for energy, for switching off lights. I don't know how you'd find that information, but sometimes just seeing how it makes a difference will help it to sort of sink in for people.
That's a really good idea, perhaps in a way that they understand. So where, for example, where we've done the action on the ESOS report, what have we done about celebrating that and sharing that? You know, this is what's happened at this particular nursery. So at Babacombe, does everyone know what savings been made, and has that been shared with children and parents? Because they might be able to.
Not yet, I don't think.
Nothing.
No, not yet.
Because our power is in sharing these things. Doing something on our own is great, but actually it's so much more powerful if we can share it with other people and they copy us. So so perhaps have a look at those actions that we've made, Sandy, write a list of them, and we can share them with marketing and see what we can get going for that. You know, we did this, the result was this. It's just a great example. Thanks for that, Zoe. Brilliant idea. We don't celebrate enough when we have success. We just quietly do it and then we forget about it and move on to the next thing. I think that seems to be a natural human, perhaps British thing to do, but it doesn't help spread the word. And we should, whether it's meals savings or energy savings or whatever, water savings. We need to do more of that. But it's a question of spotting it, you know, grabbing hold of it and doing it. And it just seems to sometimes pass by. Okay, let's move on. So I have got a few more slides. These were things that I thought of when I just thought about it. I don't think there's probably much there that you haven't already picked up, and it hasn't been picked up by ESOS. I thought I'd put a picture up of a clock that we use for turning switches off and on, because I think it's, you know, it's something we could, if anyone's got any old broken ones, we could share them with the children so they can see what they look like. But it's something that our staff need to know how to work. You know, you basically flick the little black switch down or up to make the power go on or off. And then you just need to make sure that the time is actually correct. Because of course, when all the clocks went forward a couple of weeks ago, throughout the whole business, we had to move our clocks forward. And you literally have to move one of these forward manually because it's a manual one rather than a digital one. Yeah. And I think the other points there, there's one there. It was Winchester Nursery. We had one of the Winchester Hospital people say, you know, we noticed that the air conditioning was on and the heating was on and the windows were open all at the same time. And it was because somebody felt hot, so they put the aircon on. Someone felt cold, so they put the heating on. And someone felt it was stuffy, so they opened windows. So we had all three systems fighting against each other and an enormous bill. So that's something that we can, you know, we really need to keep an eye on, that we don't have the aircon on and the windows open. I learned in a hot country, when I got into a car and you start the car up, the first thing you do is not put the aircon on. The first thing you do is put the windows down in a hot country, you know, because you need to let all that hot air out. And then once you've got ventilation going, then you put the aircon on, and it saves an enormous amount. So, and then we've got the website for sharing stuff as well. Okay, let's go on a slide. And this one, how can we engage with the children? How are we doing for time? Yeah, we've got time. Anyone got any ideas as to how we can engage the children with energy saving? And we've talked about lights going on and off. What else? I mean, do children understand energy, do you think? I know Christchurch had a smart meter where they could see when they put the toaster on or the kettle on that the red, you know, the thing went into the red. Do all nurseries have those? Are all the learners aware that, you know, those are really useful? You can either plug it into the whole system or into just one piece of equipment. Anyone else use anything to explain to the children what's going on? Otherwise, it's just learning by rote. Turn the switch off, isn't it? Any ideas?
Is there any resources in terms of the books that we've got in the nurseries? I mean, I know it's not necessarily energy, but it is all to do with the planet, isn't it? And protecting the planet. I don't know if there's many resources in the nurseries where we've got sort of books that talk about the environment as well as energy and the planet and things like that.
I will look specifically for that and go back to operations. Because we certainly, you know,
that storytelling, isn't it? It's
yeah,
that storytelling to the children, isn't it? That might help us actually engage with them on it.
Absolutely. Yeah, really good idea. Thank you, Charlotte. I've made a note. We'll go back to operations and ask them to do a bit of an audit on books. And it may be that because this group has got a budget of £1,000 a year, and it might be that we could look at buying some resources, like, you know, if I can find, or if anyone else can find a really lovely book on you know, energy saving at children's level, then that could be a really, we could buy, you know,
Probably
book for
quite
each
a few
nursery.
out there, isn't there? I expect it's quite a market where, you know, publishers are turning to. But also in our technology, is there anything, I don't know if the children have like computer games in the nursery and things like that. Is there anything digital that they can kind of interactive game or something? Do you know what I mean in terms of
Yeah, they're not
what they
using,
have? I don't know.
they're not using computers much in the nurseries anymore, because it was a conscious decision a few years ago when children were just glued to their computers and tablets and Xboxes and stuff
Difficult that
out of
balance,
school.
isn't it?
So we
Yeah.
stopped it in the
Yeah.
nursery. It also saves us a lot of money not to do it, but it's a win all round. But there are some bits and pieces. I will show you some on my list. John pointed out, John was he's the one that's working with us on the OMEP Education for Sustainable Citizenship, and he was an A-level physics teacher, and he gradually moved down the lines until he was teaching early years before he went on to academic stuff. And he said that if you understand the water flow, it helps to teach a child how energy flows, which I had not thought about it literally until 2 days ago. And he says also, if you have like storage of water, you know how you can have like in a toilet where you've got water above the, you know, in the cistern, and you build that into your play, that's actually the same principle as what a battery does, because you're storing energy in the tank and then you let it out, and that's how they actually work on hydroelectricity. They've stored the capacity to make energy in a container of water, which I hadn't realized. I probably need to understand it a bit more before I can adequately explain it to anyone else or get John to do it. But I thought that was useful. There's an example of the meter, which I just lifted off the internet, because a child can understand, and the staff as well. You know, when you're in the green OK, and as soon as you put the tumble dryer on, bang, up it goes. They might not understand the numbers, but they might. And you can buy little circuits to teach children how to do lights. It's normally done for older children, so it might be something for out of school. But if you've got a child who's already interested and has understood, you know, basic physics, then you can actually do this with your 4-year-olds. And there are also, we actually handed one of these out as a prize at one of our exhibition stands, handheld wind turbines that can actually generate electricity, and that's what they look like. And you can just get them off educational suppliers for very little. You know, we're talking £7 or £8. So basically, it would be useful, depending on the children's interests, to show, you know, you take that outside and it generates energy, and then you plug it into something, whether it's a light bulb or something. And then there's one that works a fan from solar energy. And obviously, you can get these ones that will power up tablets and things as well. So there are ways of explaining energy to small children, and certainly school children, that can be fun and engaging, but it does rely on the staff knowing what they're doing in the first place. And it might be, you know, if we ever have a conference again in the future, that we could get John or someone to have we could have a conference where there's a session on electricity, so that we can try and explain some of these concepts. Because I don't know about you, but lots of girls in particular give up physics, you know, before they get to GCSE. So then they're not in a position really to talk about this very much unless they learn it. And of course, we're predominantly female. So, you know, there's possibly a little way to go for us as adults before we're confident to share these things with children. But so just a thought, it's something I think that we could work on as adults. I dropped physics at 14, so I'm afraid I'm not very useful unless it's something to do with scuba diving, then I do know it.
I've got A-level physics.
There we go. So you might be able to.
That's because I love numbers. So it's maths and physics is my thing. So I love all this sort of stuff. So it's my thing. So I mean, I'm amazed by the solar panel doing the fan. I think that would be amazing to show them.
Yes, and then you can point to the solar panels on the roof.
Yeah, brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
So again, it might be that we think that sustainability, you know, £1,000, not just buy a book, we could actually buy some solar panels and fans, and maybe not one per nursery, maybe one per region, and they can be circulated around. How do you feel about that? And actually, it'd be quite cool for in the hot weather, wouldn't it? to actually have them lined up for July. So they're actually, the fan's actually not just a demonstration fan, it actually cools them. You know, you can have one in the manager's office, especially those where it's really, really hot and stuffy, like QA. I don't know if they ever did get their aircon, did they, outside the office at QA? I know they wanted one, but I don't think we've had the budget for years, so that might be one to follow up. Okay, so there's a few ideas, but I'm sure people could come up, do a lot better than I did with that. And then in the global south, how could we help? Yeah, anyone, any thoughts? How could you help a nursery in Mozambique or Tanzania or Uganda or Kenya or somewhere like that understand electricity? Anyone, any ideas at all? Great big silence. That was what I thought about. I think we need to listen first. You know, because I think they may well be at least be able to describe what it's like for them. And it might be that they actually want to use a solar panel for a pump for the water, to lift the water out of their well. We really don't know. I mean, who am I to you know, work out what somebody needs in a place that's not familiar to me? I absolutely know nothing. So I think it's up for us to ask them. And that was one of the things I really valued when I went to the World Forum, was that there were actually people who'd been sponsored to attend by the richer countries. So when you buy your ticket, half of your ticket goes to pay for somebody else who can't afford it to come to this conference. And we could actually listen to individuals and say, well, you know, tell me about it. That doesn't mean I know it all. I know 0.1% probably of what they need. But I think as we build relationships with nurseries in other countries, we'll learn, you know, what it is they need and whether we can help. So when we're buying a little solar panel with a fan for us, we can maybe buy another one for them, and get it, you know, transported out there, and maybe that will help not only learn about energy, but actually practically help. You know, maybe it's a solar panel that runs an irrigation system or something, so that they can grow food in their nursery garden and then eat it. You know, if water and food are a problem for them, or maybe even, you know, sell it.
There's a lovely movie on Netflix, I think. Cheryl, I can't remember the title, but it's of a kid. I think it's in Congo who does physics, and then he learns about spokes and bicycles, and then
I saw that.
Have you seen that? Yeah, and then he builds like a wind farm to irrigate the community's water, plants and stuff like that.
Absolutely brilliant. All from his
Yeah.
bike, wasn't it? He
All
took
from
a bike,
yeah, well, yeah,
took a bike, and not a new bike, and a bike from the tip.
yeah,
He
absolutely.
used
It's a
the
great movie.
dynamo and stuff. I mean, absolutely fabulous.
Mm.
Because I think, you know, water is a major problem, and energy is a huge issue for many places, but it might not be for the ones that we link up with.
Yeah.
You know, for them it might be a different sort of need. We don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy in South Africa. The government actually, you have to pay the government to install solar panels onto your property. So you pay a fee or a license on top of everything else. So
On top of paying for the solar panel, you've got to do
yeah,
that as well.
yeah.
Unbelievable, isn't it? But
Mm.
anyway, it's not for us to judge other people's governments, but what we can do is work directly with the children in the nursery, the staff in the nurseries. And we can advocate for them. You know, we can do that through our own government. We just got to be really careful for, you know, about how it's phrased, because we're the ones that cause the damage to the climate change. You know, us in the Western world, we're the ones that, you know, created coal trains and things like that, steam train, you know, and I'm making all this in the past. We're the ones that damaged the climate. So who are we to tell them how to save the environment? It's you know, we need to do this and try and help. Because although, I mean, colonialism is you know, is the way by which white people, you know, used black people, for example, to thrive and get wealthy. Now, even though it might not specifically be any of our families that did that, it's still the perception. And I met people on the train in Canada. I met a man from Southern America who hated the British because his grandmother was raped by a white colonial. So he was actually a mixture of races, because that then was his mother, and then he's the son. So he didn't want to know. And I said, well, I understand that, but it wasn't necessarily my family, because we came from Eastern Europe and emigrated into the UK. But it could equally have been part of my family, couldn't it? So he's looking for us to make restitution for that damage done 200 or 300 years ago. And I see where he's getting from. So although I don't want us to get embroiled in all that, I do want us to be positive and do what we can going forward.
Yeah, it's all about the balance, isn't it? Because even at COP, all the countries that are still burning coal, and they're saying that, but we're so far behind in development-wise. We need to burn this.
Yeah,
we can't. You have to balance it. So you have to, help us out.
And I agree with them. Why should they bear the brunt when we've already got wealthy on it potentially? So there is a balance, and I do think there's stuff we can do. And for example, supporting with things like solar panels, which then don't burn the local trees and plastic rubbish, which they then inhale, has got to be good news. So I'm not going to read this one out, but I do go on the edge of getting depressed because there's so much to do, and to get myself out of it, it's let's do something small, whether it's this meeting, some ideas will go, and each of us can do something positive and spread that around. And then personally, I want to advocate for the children, because I do worry for them and, my grandchildren and their whole generation in, 50, 60 years time. But if we can enable our children to be resilient and also to use science to save the planet, I think that's also got a lot to be said for it. Oh, and that was the end of my presentation. So we have now gone over SDG 7, I think it was. I still struggle to remember which SDG is which, but 4 is our most usual one, because that's quality education. And I think through quality education, we can impact on all the other SDGs, but certainly number 7 is another example. I know a lot of people have got to go now anyway, so I would like to thank you all very much for coming, and we'll stop the recording now if it's still recording, if you wouldn't mind, so that this can be shared. And thank you.